And number 3, was the Aam Aadmi Party playing spoiler in what was up until now a two-horse race between the BJP and the Congress? That's how Gujarat's politics has been for the last 3 decades at least. But first, the story.
मैंने वादा किया था कि भूपेंद्र नरेंद्र का रिकॉर्ड तोड़े, इसलिए नरेंद्र जी जान से मेहनत करेगा। और गुजरात की जनता ने तो रिकॉर्ड तोड़ने में भी रिकॉर्ड कर दिया, सारे रिकॉर्ड तोड़ दिए।
All right, so what was it that the BJP managed to do in Gujarat in 2022, which it could not in 2017? Remember, 2017 was an aberration election. It was the floor as far as the BJP was concerned. Go back and check. The BJP was down to double digits in 2017. All right, the marker is not popping up. But what it managed to do over the last election, that is in 2022, was to try and win back all those sections that it had lost in 2017. In 2017, the Patidars had gone away from the BJP. The tribals had gone away from the BJP. Look at Saurashtra in particular. Saurashtra was an area where out of 58 seats, the BJP was down to just in its 20s back in 2017. This time around, out of those 58 seats, the BJP got more than 45. When you dominate a part of Gujarat like that, again in southern Gujarat, where it made up for the losses in 2017, the losses in Saurashtra it made up for in southern Gujarat. The other region where it really lost in a big way was in north, in Mehsana, Patan, Sabarkantha, Banaskantha, where the BJP maxed out its gains. Out of the 30-35 seats in that northern belt, the BJP got more than 25. And like I said, this was a two-horse race up until the 2017 election. What changed in 2022 was the fact that it completely brought in this new entrant. So there were 35 seats where the Aam Aadmi Party finished second. 35 seats. If you add 17 to that 35, that takes the Congress to 51. Remember, they lost 60 seats. 60 was the loss of the Congress, out of which 17 had already defected from the Congress even before this election. So the Congress's starting point, if you will, from 77 had come down to 40. But be that as it may, out of these 60 seats, 51 seats, because 35, the Aam Aadmi Party came number 2 in. 51 seats the Congress lost because the Aam Aadmi Party was taking away vote share from the Congress. It was taking away vote share from the anti-incumbent vote, as it's called. Not that the Congress would have won this election. Yes, it would have brought them back to the to 50 plus, or maybe even closer to 60. Not that that would have made the Congress win this election. If at 50 or 60 the Congress, if it was a two-horse race, the BJP would have still ended up at 120 to 130. The question though is, this election that we saw, 156, close to 160 that is, which has never happened in Gujarat, was that in part at least because of this spoiler factor, this third party that came in. At the end of the day, they only had 5 seats, but there were 35 seats where they came number 2 in, where they pinched the Congress. We'll talk about all that and more, and also the national picture, which we'll try and get in just a moment. Let's bring in our guests. I have to ask my producer to scroll up for us. Shehzad Poonawala here is in our studios. Ashpreet Kadyal is there from the Congress parties. We also have Ajay Omat, the newspaper journalist from Gujarat. And Preeti Sharma Menon is from the Aam Aadmi Party. We'll also be joined by Yashwant Deshmukh. Let me start with you, Shehzad. I'm not taking away from the historic nature of this victory. Absolutely incredible. And like I said on the Magic Wall, even if the Aam Aadmi Party was not there, the best case performance for the Congress was between 50 and 60, and the BJP would have still ended up at 120 to 130. But not at 156, and not the Congress at 17.
Well, let me actually reveal the secret sauce behind this victory. Usually nobody does that, but let me tell you what it exactly is. And this is not a game of arithmetic. It's actually a game of chemistry. And I describe this chemistry as the PSLV model. The PSLV model of Narendra Modi. P for performance, S for Sarvasparshi, L for Labharti, and V for Vikas. Zaka, just imagine the scale of this victory. And it doesn't come by doing just some caste-based arithmetic politics that once upon a time Madhav Singh Solanki did, by which he managed 149 seats. Today, if you see the size and the scale of our victory, in the SC dominant seats, we have won 17 out of 20. In the tribal dominant seats in Dahod, Panchmahal, Chota Udaipur, we won 28 out of 32. In the urban seats, we won 52 out of 55. Pure rural seats, we won 84 out of 104. In the Patidar seats, we won 43 out of 47. Morbi, Surat, Doraji and others. And even the Muslim dominated seats. Yeah. In the Muslim dominated 19 seats, BJP has won 17, not because Owaisi factor, who took just 0.3% of the vote. We have increased our vote share compared to 2017 by at least 2.5%. This is because of what, just let me just tell you one 10 seconds more.
That I asked. I'm not taking away from the BJP's victory. Absolutely astounding, 156. Like I said, not even Madhav Singh Solanki got that. But would that 150 victory have been a 120 victory if the Aam Aadmi Party was not there in the fray?
No, the reason is because this victory is not a victory because of the entry of Aam Aadmi Party and taking away of Congress votes. This victory is a decisive positive mandate, and let me tell you one figure, because most people, when I used to say it during the election cycle, never took it seriously. Today, the reason why even Muslims are coming and voting for the BJP, Pasmanda Muslims in particular, or all these sections which are not traditional BJP voters, is because Modi has created a new class of voter called Labharti. Let me just give you 5 statistics. 97% of people in Gujarat have water tap connections. First, they did not have water because of the drought areas.
It doesn't mean all the 97% voted for you, right? I mean, 97%, your vote share is 53%.
Well, the inclination of a person to vote for us after they get a tap connection, and their life before this was that they used to have to go for kilometers and kilometers to fetch one pail of water.
But it's not like all 97% people got tap connections in the last 20 years. Surely there were people who got it before that as well.
No, the majority of this has happened in the period. Just let me give you 2-3 more statistics. 10.5 lakh poor people have got a Pakka house. 1.7 crore in the last few years have got Jandhan accounts. 36 lakh women have got gas collections. And 3.5 crore people have got ration the last 2 years free when COVID struck. These have created a class of Labhartis. They don't see religion, they don't see caste, they don't see any other factor, they don't get swayed by free politics.
Fair enough.
They go and they vote for the labh they have
Like
got.
I said, I'm not taking away from the scale of the BJP's victory. Yashwant Deshmukh is joining us. 2 things. One that I asked Shehzad, and I want to ask you this as well. Of course, the BJP would have definitely won Gujarat, no question about it. But whether it was a 110, 120 victory or a 150 victory, I just showed on the magic wall before you joined us, Yashwant Deshmukh, that there were 35 seats where the Aam Aadmi Party finished second. Of those 35 seats, in 31, the number of votes that the Aam Aadmi Party polled is much greater than the victory margin of the BJP candidate. Meaning, if the Aam Aadmi Party candidate was not there, and if that was the anti-incumbent or opposition vote, then the Congress candidate would have won in those constituencies. So, do you think, the Congress from 17 to, let's say, a respectable figure like a 50 and a BJP from 110 to 150 was because of this spoiler factor in the Aam Aadmi Party?
Well, I don't really think that I would like to call Aam Aadmi Party as the spoiler factor for 2 reasons. Number one, I genuinely believe even if Aam Aadmi Party would not have been there, Congress would have lost the election in Gujarat big time because they did not invest back in the mandate given by the Gujarati people to them when they won 77 seats last time, of behaving like a responsible opposition, being aggressive on the ground, being available on the ground, being seen as the ground. Their national leadership dumped it. Nobody went back. So Gujarati opposition voters were feeling cheated of sorts. And there was an anti-incumbency not against the ruling party, but for the first time, a weird phenomena of anti-incumbency against the principal opposition party. So that is the case number one, that no matter what, Aam Aadmi Party or no Aam Aadmi Party, Congress would have lost big time. yes, the consolation debate could be that instead of getting under 20 seats, they might have ended up with 40 seats. That's okay. If they feel there is a big consolation in them, probably okay. I mean, there's no question.
Okay, so let me ask Ashpreet Kadyal of the Congress. Irrespective of this spoiler factor, the fact is, and I think Yashwant Deshmukh makes a very valid point, your leaders did not invest in Gujarat. This is a Pikewan situation where for the first time the opposition was on electoral test more than the government was or more than the ruling party was, because the 77 MLAs that you returned in 2017, the people of those constituencies are saying, what did you do? If you haven't, put a check and balance on this government for which we voted you for, then why should we vote for you again?
We humbly accept the mandate of the people. We will introspect and make sure we, work on these issues. However, one or two things that we have learned from the Bharatiya Janata Party are, and which we'll also, try and learn from the Bharatiya Janata Party, are these issues. How do you manage to advertise, brand, and do marketing when you have done nothing at all on the ground? This is one thing that we really need to learn from the Bharatiya Janata Party. Number two,
you think 156 record mandate is because of advertisements?
B teams. How do you manage your...
Ashpreet, one second. Ashpreet, are you saying that 156, the kind of mandate even Madhav Singh Solanki did not get in Gujarat, is because of advertisements?
That's one of the major factors. Allow me the time and I'll tell you what are the factors are. Another thing that we need to
Aam Aadmi Party, by the way, took out more advertisements than BJP in Gujarat.
How does the Bharatiya Janata Party...
So, I'm not sure whether that logic holds, but
how did the Bharatiya Janata Party... We need to learn another thing from the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is how they managed to, work with their B team, AIMIM and Aam Aadmi Party in order to cut the votes of the Congress Party. Number three, how they instilled fear in the minds of the people that were leaning towards the Congress Party in Gujarat. And number four,
what is the fear factor? One second. What do you mean by fear? What do you mean by fear? Was BJP saying we are going to jail people who vote for the Congress? What fear are you talking about?
Our MLA was lifted. Okay. Number two, there were threat calls. There were intimidation calls, and we also got complaints registered in the police station.
If anything, that should enthuse your voter more. Your voter should be more enthused if you feel that your MLAs were being persecuted.
So the Bharatiya Janata Party, another thing.
Ashpreet, I have great respect for you. I have great respect for you. But let's come up with some slightly more cogent arguments. No, please. As a lawyer, surely you can come up with slightly more cogent arguments. Let me ask Preeti Sharma Menon. Okay, let me move to Preeti Sharma Menon of the Aam Aadmi Party. Preeti Sharma Menon, can we at least concede at the end of this election? Only Preeti Sharma Menon on the frame, please. At the end of this election, where the Aam Aadmi Party made so much noise on social media and said, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. In fact, Mr. Kejriwal wrote in pieces of paper in television programs saying BJP ko to 20 seats se zyada nahi aayega Gujarat mein. The final tally is 156 BJP and 5 to the Aam Aadmi Party. Can we concede that, making noise on social media does not necessarily win an election?
No, I'd look at it this differently. The BJP has won this election decisively. And the reason for the win is they themselves. They have won the election. You cannot blame other parties and other things for, why they won, because this is a B team, this one cut votes. This is a decisive victory and we have to hand it to them, congratulate them. They had a wholehearted, decisive victory in Gujarat and it is all credit to them. When other parties are contesting the elections, they have the full right to do everything. We contested an election to win. We did everything that we could, but they won. That's great. That's the way democracy pans out. But I think what we've done is something tremendous. We have managed to enter a state which is a stronghold of the BJP, of the Prime Minister, of the Home Minister, and we have managed to secure 14% vote in it, which is more than any other political party does in its first attempt. I mean, if you look at BJP itself, it has been trying in Kerala since 1980s and hasn't succeeded. May I complete?
Can I ask one question?
Can I just complete?
No, absolutely laudatory what you've done in a first election in Gujarat. You got 14% vote share. You got 1% vote share in Himachal Pradesh. Why did you leave the field there?
we tried to contest the election in Himachal Pradesh, but our organization wasn't up to it. In Gujarat, we have a fantastic organization. We've got 41 lakh votes over there. So I think we've managed to create a space for ourselves in Gujarat, like we did in Punjab in the first time we contested. And this next election, we will have a resounding victory, I'm sure.
No, Preeti, again, I keep coming back to this point. One second, Preeti, I keep coming back to this point because the Congress has been saying this again and again. Had the Aam Aadmi Party not taken away that 13-14% vote share, the Congress's vote share today from 27% would have been somewhere close to 40%. And at 40% vote share, they would not have ended up with 17 seats. And surely this begs the question. I've been asking this to AAP spokesperson after AAP spokesperson. In a small state like Himachal, neighboring Punjab, where you won just 6 months ago with a record 93 seats, you think that that was a tougher contest, but you'll go to a Gujarat where BJP is in power for 27 years, that is an easier contest.
See, which election we choose to fight and how we choose to fight is our prerogative.
Of course.
But let me come to this Congress question. If Congress keeps saying, let me please answer, you never let me answer.
Yeah,
if the Congress keeps saying, oh, we would have won or we would have done better if the Aam Aadmi Party did not exist. Yes, of course. If the AAP, may I complete? If the AAP did not exist, if the TMC did not exist, if the Samajwadi Party did not exist, if no other party existed on this planet, of course the Congress would do well.
Okay.
But that's not a justification.
Okay, let me go to Ajay Umat and then I'll come to Shehzad.
It's a diverse country.
Ajay
and we have
Umat,
multiple
please
parties.
explain to our viewers why the scale of the BJP's victory. Again, you know, the point is no one doubted that the BJP will win. Of course, the BJP would have won. I mean, it's their guard, it's the Prime Minister's state, it's the Home Minister's state. They would have surely won. But to come back with the kind of mandate that even Madhav Singh Solanki did not get in 85, which was a watershed election, it was the creation of a new social coalition. Something is happening in Gujarat or has happened in Gujarat, which even the pollsters, I mean, to be fair, one of them got the extent of the victory, but none of them said 156. No pollster said 156. So surely something was going on there in Gujarat, where the Gujarati voter has reaffirmed his or her faith in Modi and in the BJP in a way that we haven't seen since the inception of the state.
Sir, should I tell you one thing? Yashwant was with me in one of the discussion and we both agreed before 2 months that under any circumstances BJP is going to win this election. But we were thinking it can be 110 to 120. But I tell you, if I have to describe this in one sentence, I'll say it was because of Mr. Modi's magic, Amit Shah's skills, and the party president, C.R. Patil's, the way he has piloted the whole thing. Mr. Narendra Modi knew that, there is an anti-incumbency on ground. He knew there is an anti-establishment feeling. He also knew that, there was mismanagement of corona and price rise and unemployment and frequent paper leakages and all such things. So first thing he did, because he was very upset because last time BJP was nervous 90. They got only 99 seats. So what he did before 1 year, he started his preparation. He changed the whole cabinet, including Chief Minister Vijay Rupani. Then he brought new faces. Before 6 months, he announced that, Defense Expo, because Gujarati basically, they love business. So if you see, Defense Expo has come to here, business has gone up, then, national sports, then, the biggest investment in last 2 months, that was, this Airbus Tata project of Airbus Tata and Vedanta project of worth 2 lakh crore rupees, and more than 6 lakh crore rupees foreign direct investment, which is highest in the country, has come to Gujarat. Okay. Now, what he did, he said that,
can I ask,
the criteria.
Okay, can I ask Shehzad Poonawala?
Give me 1 minute.
No, can I ask
Give me 1 minute, sir. Give me 1 minute.
Two things. The point that Ajay Umat made about, negating anti-incumbency by changing the cabinet, lock, stock and barrel, 18 months before the election. And second, as he said, the average Gujarati loves to do business. So you had 5 lakh crores, 6 lakh crores worth of these MOUs being announced, the Tata project, the Vedanta project, all moving from Maharashtra, where you come from, to Gujarat. Did that tilt the scales?
I'll tell you why these propositions are not correct. Because you are only seeing the 6th and now the 7th time we've returned to assembly. But in that same period, we have one Lok Sabha after Lok Sabha. We have one local election after local election. Wahan pe to Aam Aadmi Party, MIM bhi nahi thi. The reason why we win, and I'll tell you very honestly, there are 2 factors at play and I sum them up as Manas. Manas means Modi, Nadda, Santosh. this represents a trioca of and Amit Shah. They represent a quartet of 4 people who don't stop working. We are constantly working. Let me tell you,
So tell
Modi.
me, no,
let me
one
explain
second.
to you
On
one more
Manas,
thing.
on Manas, why didn't your party president's home state, you didn't,
I'm
Manas
explaining.
did not
I
work
was coming
there?
to exactly that. You would say, but then why does this Manas, Modi, Amit Shah, Nadda and Santosh not work in Himachal?
Yeah, exactly.
Sir, it has worked in Himachal and it has worked in MCD also. I'll tell you how. We have lost those elections. Fair and square, I
Yeah,
agree.
of course.
But we have not lost our dignity because nobody expected 104. I sat on this studio and I told you we will come very close. We were only 30 votes shy in Delhi. In Himachal, just 0.9%. To 10 seats, it's less than 500, 700 votes. 700 votes that we lost.
Doesn't matter.
Even when, one second, Ashpreet, I'm making a larger point.
A win
Please,
is
sir.
a win.
May
A
I
win
just
is a
make this
win.
Yeah,
point?
one sec, Ashpreet. I'm coming to you, Ashpreet. Give me
This is
10
not a
seconds.
point
Yeah,
you should be
give me
taking
30
personally.
seconds.
I'm trying
30
to
seconds, yeah. 30 seconds, I'll come to you.
Zak-
I'll come to you,
Zak-
Ashpreet. P, have some
I
patience.
don't
Yeah.
understand this crass behavior.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No, but he has a point. A
he
win is
can-
a win.
A win is a
If
win.
if you had
I'm
won
not
Himachal,
denying,
you would have.
but I'm trying to make an honest point to you, to your viewers.
Go on, yeah.
Brand Modi has got stronger and the BJP's machinery to organizationally organize itself for elections and for social work has become stronger, and therefore even when we lose in Himachal, we have lost by 0.09%. This is because we have invested that much. Even in the upcoming elections, we have already started working.
Okay.
This is not, I'm not trying to say market that we are working to.
No,
this is genuinely we are
fair
working
enough.
constantly to reach the people
For me,
and to take our ideology forward. and therefore, even when we lose, we don't lose badly.
Yashwant Deshmukh, for me, I think Himachal shows the limit of all the factors that worked in Gujarat. Obviously, Mr. Modi's magic worked, Amit Shah's organizational abilities worked. The fact that they changed the cabinet and therefore blunted some amount of anti-incumbency, they didn't do that in Himachal. Therefore, that worked in Gujarat. It didn't work in Himachal. It shows to me the limits of this election-winning machine called the BJP. That even in North India, you can challenge the BJP if A, there are local factors, B, there is anti-incumbency, and C, there is an opposition party that's willing to ride on that. In Himachal, to be fair to the Congress, they did that. In Gujarat, they left the field.
Well, exactly, and actually, I've been saying that there is a twist to the concept of the double-engine sarkar, because I genuinely believe it is the only single-engine sarkar everywhere in that way. In the case of the BJP, the second engine that they always quote in the double-engine sarkar is of the chief minister, which invariably is not placed in the front of the train, but actually in the opposite side on the guard's coach, pulling the train down. And it is a single engine of popularity of Narendra Modi, which still manages to pull the entire train of the BJP across the finishing line. So it's a double engine, but it's not the double engine working in the same direction. You remember our latest issue of the 15th of August, India Today, Mood of the Nation. In that survey, we found that among the top 10 chief ministers of the India, only one, Himanta Biswa Sarma of Assam, was from the BJP. Rest of them were from opposition. So BJP's huge problem is that their chief minister's performance is not really matching, or their popularity is not really matching to the extent that prime minister's performance is rated, or prime minister's popularity.
So tell me, Yashwant, going forward in 2023, you have the big states. You have Karnataka coming up first, then you have Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh. In those three states, in two of them, the Congress is the ruling party, and in one of them, the BJP is the defending party, as it were. Do you see the Congress having a chance in these four states? In all of these four states, it's primarily a Congress versus BJP fight.
Well, I genuinely believe that BJP has a tough task coming in Karnataka. Congress will have a really, really tough task retaining Rajasthan and coming back again in Madhya Pradesh. At this point of time, it really looks difficult. In Chhattisgarh, there is a probability of Congress continuation as far as the data is concerned. I'm only talking about the data point. Chhattisgarh CM's ratings are still okay, even though there is a huge anti-incumbency against the sitting MLAs that is growing up. But however, CM is doing okay. So Congress has a good chance in Karnataka and in Chhattisgarh, but they do not have a that good a chance in
Ashpreet,
Madhya Pradesh.
one of the other things about these four states, is that the Congress has one too many claimants in both in all of these states. Whether it is Siddaramaiah versus D.K. Shivkumar in Karnataka, Sachin Pilot versus Ashok Gehlot in Rajasthan. Of course, Mr. Scindia is not with your party anymore, but it used to be Kamal Nath versus Scindia in Madhya Pradesh, and of course Bhupesh Baghel versus T.S. Singh Dio in Chhattisgarh. The Congress seems to be its own worst enemy, as is evidenced in Himachal. You have won a record win in Himachal, and there is still a fight going on who will be the next chief minister.
Well, number one, from Himachal, you can ascertain that it's only going to be onwards and upwards for the Congress party from here. Number two, as far as, the discussion that's going on, the charcha that is happening over who should be the CM, that is what democracy is. That is freedom of speech and expression. That is, how the beauty of democracy should be, which is absent in the Bharatiya Janata Party. And that's why the Bharatiya Janata Party does not know how to have debates and discussions as to who should be the leader. It comes from the top.
Ashpreet, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. There was the CLP meeting that happened an hour ago in Shimla.
Number two,
for all the freedom and expression, you know what they did? There was a one-line resolution saying we leave it to the High Command to decide who should be the Chief Minister. I'm just putting it out there. This is what happened in Shimla 1 hour ago. Okay.
I'll give an example of Mr. Modi. Mr. Modi comes down to the states and says what? Vote in my name, as if all the other leaders in the Bharatiya Janata Party are incompetent.
Okay.
Don't know anything. Even the former CM, even the former deputy CM, even all the former ministers.
Okay.
Nobody knows anything. Only Mr. Modi does.
All right.
That is why we say the Bharatiya Janata Party.
I've got the last 2 or 3 minutes to wrap up, so I'm going to go to Preeti Sharma Menon.
Number two, the major
Preeti
reason
Sharma Menon, again, one of the things that this verdict showed yesterday was the limits of the Aam Aadmi Party and its sort of national footprint, as it were. Yes, in smaller states, Goa, maybe Uttarakhand, maybe that's why I keep saying Himachal was a surer bet for you than Gujarat. But in smaller states, you could challenge whether it's the BJP or the Congress. But in bigger states, and to establish a national footprint, there is still a long ways to go for your party.
Well, I think it is fantastic what we have done. I'm quite surprised that you're looking at it this way. I don't know whether it comes from a bias, but a party that in 10 years has become a nationally recognized party, that has only 8 parties in India have done that so far, a party that in 10 years is in power in 2 states. I think we are the most phenomenally growing party. The BJP till now has not managed to really do anything in many states. They've been trying since 1980. You didn't let me say this earlier.
In 17
in Andhra
states.
Pradesh in 2019, Narendra Modi.
Ma'am.
Yes, they are.
They're in power in 17
They started
states.
in 1980. They started in 1980 and we started in 2012.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Okay.
And I think in 10 years we've done more than any other party has done in India.
Sure.
We are growing. We are the fastest growing party.
Fair enough.
We are now a nationally recognized party, and now we are creating a vote bank, vote base almost in every state in India.
No,
and we are going to go everywhere, whether the Congress or the anchors like it or not.
The point
Just
being,
to
I'll get
come in
Yashwant
very
also, but
briefly,
Shehzad,
just to come in very
two
briefly.
things. One, just give me 10 seconds. One is, I think in bigger states, the Aam Aadmi Party has a problem because it runs into a significant opposition party, whether it is Congress or whether it is regional parties. There, the Aam Aadmi Party struggles. And secondly, this whole, almost utopian idea that in 2024, Mr. Kejriwal can challenge Mr. Modi, I think that myth has been busted by Gujarat yesterday.
Let me just come in very quickly. Preeti is a good friend of
I don't
mine.
think anybody is saying
may I,
such
may I,
things about-
Preeti, may I? Because we don't want to speak over each other.
I'm
Preeti
just
should.
responding to what he said to me.
Sure. Yeah.
Preeti, I don't know which IB report you are reading, because the BJS became a national party in 1 year, BJP in 4 years, CPM in 7, NCP in 1, NPP in 6, and you did not contest Gujarat for the first time. Here's a 2017 report saying that you got 24,918 votes in the year 2017. If I am lying about this, I am ready to quit politics. If I am not,
Now,
I
can I
hope Mr.
respond? Can I
Kejriwal,
respond to
who's
this?
lying seriously about this, will quit politics. I am putting my entire political career on stake.
Can I-
Have you contested in 2017? A party like yours
Thanks.
lies brazenly on television, on national television. You write and you give things,
Can I
and you
please
say,
respond to
"Pehli
this?
baar
You
mein
don't
humne
want Shehzad,
40
you've
lakh
made your
vote
point.
le
Now
liye."
let
You
me
have
respond.
contested in 2017 in Gujarat.
2017
The
when we
Gujaratis
contested
Let her
the
Gujaratis
respond.
can't be
it was
fooled
just
as
a
usual.
few people that had stood
Preeti,
up. Yes, you should be allowed to respond. In 2017, a few local leaders had decided to contest on their own on the party name. The party did not go there and contest the election in the
Zaka.
real sense of the word. Like we're saying in
PTI
Himachal, we
INS
didn't really
report.
contest a
Okay.
full-fledged election
Here you go.
because
Anyway,
we didn't have the Sangathan there.
I'm
We did
going to
this in
wrap
Gujarat.
up. I'm going to
Okay,
wrap
now
up.
okay,
No,
okay,
no, I'm
okay.
going to wrap up
Let me
because
concede to Shehzad.
Okay.
Let me concede to Shehzad. We did it in 2 terms.
Okay,
In
you
at
did
least
it in
10
2
times
terms.
Then
you
Okay.
why
tried
Mr.
in Kerala,
Kejriwal lying?
Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh,
Mr.
and you got
Kejriwal
nowhere.
was on. Zaka,
So
you
I
have to
think
extend this for 10
nobody
seconds.
is
I
lying. This is
request
the
you.
first time
Quickly,
request you,
I
sir.
have
10
to take a
second
break.
extension.
I have to take a break.
Ten
30
seconds.
seconds, yes.
Tremendously.
Preeti Sharma Menon, a national spokesperson, has come out and said Kejriwal lied to us. Kejriwal has said
No,
that
she didn't
in
say
first
that.
time. No, he said that I agree it's in 2 terms.
Okay.
Kejriwal's been saying it's in 1 term. I
Okay.
think this is the most biggest lie Kejriwal can say to
All
somebody.
right, I got to wrap up. I'm completely out of time. All I'll say is, for me, the 2 or 3 big takeaways. Number one, Mr. Modi's magic, his aura in Gujarat absolutely continues. It is unabated, and I don't think anything can stop that. From evidence from the fact that the BJP has had the biggest ever mandate that any party has seen in the history of Gujarat. But having said that, are there limits to that model? Can other parties challenge that model? Certainly Himachal has shown that. I think it's going to be fascinating what you're going to see in 2023 in Karnataka, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, and that in a sense will set the tone for 2024. I'm going to take a break. That was the news until now. Now let's take a look at some big news that we have for car owners.
In doing that, what Pawan Kalyan essentially intends to do is come up with a combined force to take on Jagan Mohan Reddy in Andhra Pradesh. He says Jagan has looted Andhra Pradesh in the name of welfare schemes. The actual beneficiaries are not getting any benefits, and he's on a mission really to go and counter all the false propaganda being put forth by Jagan Mohan Reddy.
All right, Swastika, I want you to stay with us. We are now being joined by Mr. Vishnuvardhan Reddy of the BJP. Mr. Reddy, thank you so much for speaking to CNN News 18. The breaking development is that the YSRCP has lashed out at Pawan Kalyan, saying that his election vehicle violates the Motor Vehicle Act. How do you see this entire war of words?
Yeah, good morning. I think first of all, Mr. Pawan Kalyan is our Andhra Pradesh BJP, one of the election partner and one of the familiar artists, especially in South India and as well as Pan India. Is Pawan Kalyan ji, last 8 years, is having a political party. 2019 is a contesting JSP, Janasena and other communist parties collaboration. After defeated, he is also there joining BJP alliance. Now there Andhra Pradesh, lot of corruption, lot of undemocratic activity. They are directly, indirectly, they are supporting under YSRCP leadership. Particularly next 18 months in Andhra Pradesh election battle is also there coming. All political parties is also even ruling political party, YS Jagan Mohan Reddy also last 3 days back, they are conducted one big rally. He's also announced upcoming 18 months their election is came. We are also ready to election battle. Same similar time in Bharatiya Janata Party as well as Janasena is also they are ready to their field level activities is going on. Particularly Bharatiya Janata Party recently we are conducted in national level. BJP also their appreciation regarding Praja Poru is called 300, 400 street corner meetings. We are conducting 6,000 to 7,000 in last month. I think as well as in Janasena also they are ready to moving in public their failure of YSR Congress Party. Unnecessary YSR Congress Party leaders and particularly some ministers, every day they are criticizing Janasena and Janasena activities. It is not correct. If here really development is there in YSR Congress Party, why they are upright, why they are every day they are destructing other opposition political party activities. Even Janasena Prachara Rattam, what they are called in vehicle, that is also they are unnecessary, they are creating trouble. If in case of Janasena, they are using some colors, especially their defense people, they are using their unnecessary colors. They are using, that is the matter will take the transport ministry, transport department, transport officials. Why the YSR Congress Party former minister Nani yesterday they are claiming and they are commenting and criticizing that vehicle. For the total this scenario, YSR Congress Party 2024 election, they are not fighting battle in field level. Why? Because it's a lot of corruption and as well as also financial drashtight in Andhra Pradesh, assurance also there. YSR Congress Party there, what they are given in 2019 election promises also, they are not fulfilled. Even unemployment is also high. Today is one of the accidentally Parliament, they are given the clarification. Highest petrol price in our country, one and only state in Andhra Pradesh. Second place like Telangana, like that. Why they are YSR Congress Party, they are not commenting like this one? Even particularly in Andhra Pradesh, YSR Congress Party, day by day they are losing his YSR Congress Party ruling government credibility. 100% upcoming election, BJP Janasena election battle, 100% we are fighting. But once again, I will tell to YSR Congress Party government and leaders, don't distract it in opposition political party activities. That is the directly, indirectly a loss in YSR Congress Party, gain in opposition political parties. This is my sincere advice to YSR Congress Party.
All right, now, Mr. Reddy, I do want to ask you a few follow-up questions. Considering that it's not just the YSRCP which is saying that olive green cannot be used, the Additional Transport Commissioner has also said that dark green can only be used for military vehicles. What they're going to attempt to find out is if the vehicle has been bought as a goods vehicle or as a bus. Now, considering that the Additional Transport Commissioner has also said this, do you not think once the clarification does come out about how it's been bought, whether it's a goods vehicle or a bus, let's say that it goes against the vehicle that has been put out as an election campaign vehicle. Now, days after actor turned politician Pawan Kalyan unveiled his campaign vehicle, a special bus which looks similar to a military vehicle, the YSRCP has slammed him, saying that he is violating the Motor Vehicles Act, which states that apart from defense vehicles, no other passenger vehicle can be painted in olive green. Let's listen to some reactions.
Requesting Pawan Kalyan, just come out of the cinema phobia, cinema aura. Indian Motor Vehicle Act, according to Indian Motor Vehicle Act, no one other than army, no one should use olive green color for vehicles, private vehicles. What is that? Just to follow the law.
There is a full-blown battle that's going on between the judiciary and the government on the appointment of judges. The judiciary says the existing system, the collegium system, which is a grouping of the senior-most judges of the Supreme Court, that is good enough to continue to appoint High Court and Supreme Court judges. But the government says when the judiciary is getting its fingers in all other forms of government or branches of government, from decisions of the executive to bills being passed in parliament, then why should the executive and the legislature not have a say in the judges that are being appointed to the highest courts of this land? The NJAC was brought in 2015. It was passed by parliament by a large majority, but it was struck down by the Supreme Court, saying it is unconstitutional. The question that begs to be asked is, should the judges also relent and accept that there has to be some amount of either executive or parliamentary oversight over who is being appointed as a judge? After all, in the US, in the UK, the executive and the legislature play a role in the appointment of judges. Why should judges behave like the appointment in senior positions, both in high courts as well as in the Supreme Court, is some kind of a turf war? But first, the story so far.
Parliament, in a much-needed historic step, passed the 99th Constitutional Amendment Bill, paving way for the National Judicial Commission. There was unprecedented support. The Lok Sabha unanimously voted in its favor.
Confrontation, which is unfortunately building up, does not augur well for the constitutional scheme, and therefore I had given a notice under Rule 184, an adjournment notice to have a detailed discussion.
ये जो कांग्रेस पार्टी और हम में फर्क है ना, कांग्रेस पार्टी जैसा काम करते थे हम वैसे नहीं कर सकते.
All right, this is a full-blown confrontation between the judiciary and the executive. The question is, who will mind the judges? Of course, the judges mind everything, because after all, every law that is passed by Parliament has to stand the test of law, has to stand the test of judicial scrutiny. But what about the appointment of judges? Joining us now on the talking point this evening, Justice B.A. Khan is former Chief Justice of the Jammu and Kashmir High Court. Arima Sundaram will be joining us, Senior Advocate in the Supreme Court. Sanya Talwar is Editor of Law Beat. Adil Singh Bopara is an advocate and spokesperson of the Congress Party. Let me start with you, Justice B.A. Khan. You know, in principle, no one has a problem with the existing system, the collegium system. It has worked well. It has worked well for a number of years. I think the issue is, what the government is asking is, if in every other domain of appointments, from appointments in the government, appointments in the legislature, appointments, of course, even in the election commission, which the judges had a few things to say about a few weeks ago, if the judges can weigh in on all of that, why shouldn't government, a popularly elected government, which is the basic principle of democracy, why shouldn't they have a say in judges who are appointed to senior positions either in high courts or in the Supreme Court?
Zaka, but who says is that government doesn't have a hand? They are the movers and shakers. And they start sharing it from the day go. The very stage when the appointment process starts, government shares it somehow or the other, that one knows who goes through that experience. But when you look at it superficially at the highest level, how does one think that government doesn't have a hand? Don't you see that the government sits on the proposals for 6 months, 7 months, and that is the cause for delay of appointments? Don't you see that the collegium recommendations, even if reiterated, are returned? Now, this is not, see, for example, let me tell you the actual process. Actual process is for High Court judge, when a process is initiated, that process goes through government at two levels. It goes through the Chief Minister, it goes through the Governor, then it reaches the Central Law Ministry, and then after that it goes to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Now, at every stage, you have either interventions or suggestions, or you may call it whatever, maybe by the Chief Minister or maybe by the Governor. And unless it is approved politically, much of it doesn't go through. So to say that the government has no share in appointments is only looking at it superficially.
No, but Justice Khan, my point was, you also agree that these 6 months delay, 7 months delay, maybe sometimes even a year's delay, is perhaps caused by the fact that the government it does not, have a say, or not have a say, but the government's choice is not endorsed by the judges, by the collegium, as it were.
That is not true. Practically on ground, in consultations, they share who the candidates are and who should get cleared and who should not get cleared. So those are back channel talks, as you call them. So it's not that. It is happening everywhere, but this is the only problem today is that what I see is that there is a pattern to take away this collegial system from the Supreme Court and appropriate it to the executive.
Okay, to come up with an NJAC-like system. But let me ask Arima Sundaram, who is joining us today, what the court said was pretty scathing in its observations, where a bench headed by Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul basically said that Parliament has the power to enact laws. The government can ask the Parliament to lay down a new law. No one can prohibit it. You want to bring in a new law, gather consensus, you can always do that. However, you may have to then stand the scrutiny of a challenge. The scheme of the Constitution requires the court to be the final arbiter on the position of a law as enacted by Parliament. Now, yes, of course, no one is taking away the rights of the Supreme Court to see if a law that's passed is constitutional or not, or stands the test of judicial scrutiny. But if you have a popularly elected government, and in a democracy, whether you like it or not, that is a reflection of the will of the people. And if the will of the people has passed a law, then should the judiciary have the final say on it, as Justice Kaul may be indicating in the statement that he made?
Well, to say anything contrary to what Justice Kaul said would be to rewrite the entire Constitution of India and the very concept of modern democracy. Let's understand what is modern democracy. Modern democracy has as its very basic fulcrum what is known as the separation of powers. By the separation of powers, you have the executive and the judiciary, and in a case where the legislature is a totally separate body, the legislature, and each has its scope of activity. Now, under our Constitution and under the Constitution of most countries, including the United States of America, which everyone likes to tout about, the American Supreme Court also, well, the fact is that the final arbiter as to whether a law is constitutionally valid or not is the courts. So what Justice Kaul said today is nothing really different than what the law as we know it is, and not only the law as we know it. Starting from 1215 AD in the Magna Carta, the concept of the rule of law. Now, it doesn't mean that just because there is a majority, and the majority decides at that given time to do something which is against the Constitution, that the court cannot interfere with it at all. That is not so at all, nor is it the basis of our Constitution. Our Constitution makes the Supreme Court the final arbiter, and in fact goes one step
that's
further.
In the process of lawmaking and adjudicating upon that law. If I may, Mr. Sundaram, on the question of appointment of judges, if the US Supreme Court, the judges are appointed by the executive, the same thing is followed in the UK and other major democracies around the world, why should a popularly elected executive, a popularly elected government not have a say in the appointment of judges in high courts and in the Supreme Court of this country?
Well, the reason is very simple. When the case of Gupta came up and this whole guidelines was laid down and the law interpreted and the collegium system introduced, there was a feeling that the executive at that time was interfering in the course of justice by cherry-picking, hand-picking judges as per their choice. And perhaps if people were not felt to be more, let me say, more academically or more through policy or belief against what the policy or the belief of the government was, the government of that day, and we're going back to 1994, the government of that day felt that, look, we don't want such a person as a judge. Now, that immediately strikes at the very independence of judiciary. The independence of the judiciary is that a judge is fearless, a judge decides the way he wants, the judge decides the case according to the Constitution.
Absolutely.
And that is the independence of the judiciary.
I don't disagree with you there.
So in which case, if it was felt at that time that the executive was interfering with this course of justice by trying to pack a court, and that was the expression I remember being used in those days, packing a court, superseding judges, superseding the chief justices. You know, it was a situation where it had really got out of hand.
Fair enough. No, I don't disagree with you on that.
While it does say the president will appoint, it doesn't say on whose advice.
Let me ask Sanya Talwar though, by that same token, that if you were to give the executive a more than fair share of its say in appointment of judges, then it will lead to, as he said, the packing of pliant judges in high courts and Supreme Courts. No one is disagreeing with that. But by that same token, Sanya Talwar, shouldn't the minutes of the collegium meeting, what was decided as far as the credentials of Judge X or Judge Y, shouldn't that be made public? Because if every decision of the government, a popularly elected government, is held up either in court, has to stand the test of judicial scrutiny, or more importantly, also open now to the Right to Information Act, why shouldn't the minutes of the collegium as to why the collegium of judges oppose the candidature of a certain judge, or why they approve the candidature of a certain judge, should that not be made public for the country to know?
Precisely, Zaka. I think the question that we should be asking today is judicial sovereignty or primacy versus judicial independence. These are two things that we should be focusing on as against each other instead of the executive versus judiciary. Like you rightly pointed out, nowhere in the world are judges pointed out primarily by the and only by the judicial members or the judges itself. The entire concept of appointments is just shrouded in mystery, and it's for all the amazing work that the judiciary has done in the country. I think it is very important that the system and the way the transparency that is expected of a constitutional democracy is also projected in the judiciary. If we are looking at the system as it stands today, no doubt the collegium is something that has already been upheld by the Supreme Court, and that is a system that is nowhere mentioned in the Constitution for that matter. But yeah, of course, nobody is taking away the power of the Supreme Court, like you said, to be the final arbiter of law. The senior designations are always projected. There is a proper streamlined system for it. The concept is made public of who is chosen. Why are in the UPSC for that matter? Let's take that example. There is a certain criteria which is followed. It is made public. Why not the system of appointment of judges then?
Yeah. So Adil Singh Boparai, whether it is the appointment of the CBI director, whether it's the appointment of secretaries to various ministries or the cabinet secretary, all of this is made public or it's available publicly if a citizen of India chooses to ask through an RTI. And of course, all of these appointments, if there is any aggrieved party, he or she is well within their right to move either the ACC or they can even move a court of law. Why shouldn't that same principle apply to the appointment of judges?
Well, Zaka, at the outset, the Congress party is deeply dismayed by the ruling dispensation's consistent attempts to browbeat the judiciary. We're deeply dismayed. The judiciary in our country is the bulwark of our constitution. In a system of checks and balances, it is the judiciary which checks the tyranny of any majoritarian government. You may be in a majority, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're right.
No,
Adil,
if I may, Adil, the problem is, as Justice Khan was saying before you joined the show, the problem is the government then sits on these names for 6 months, 8 months, sometimes up to a year, because they don't want to clear these names. Now, would you rather, avoid? Look at the Supreme Court itself right now. In what should be a full strength of, I think, 34, 35, there's a vacancy of 6 or 7. I mean,
so what's that? No, let's test this. Let's test this, Zaka. I'm glad you raised this point because it's a very important issue. Let's test this. For example, tomorrow X name is sent by the Supreme Court Collegium to the government. The government, based on IB reports and otherwise, makes certain notings which are plausible, where those notings are done based on certain material. Okay. And those notings are then, the file is returned back to the Collegium. If there is basis to those notings, why would the Collegium not reconsider that name? It merely can't be that the government says that it is my way or the highway. If the name is agreeable to me, then I will issue warrants. Otherwise, I will not issue warrants. Yes, this is a problem. The government sitting on files is a problem because that is a manifestation that either you send our names or we will sit over those names no matter the vacancies may rise. So therefore, it is important the government has its say. So the point which I'm trying to emphasize is that the government has its say. It can make notings. It can return the file to the Supreme Court Collegium. It is on the second round that they're bound to pay heed and issue warrants. Therefore, let's not lose sight of the fact that we're a government, we're a constitutional framework which is based on the edifice of checks and balances. No one organ can ride roughshod over the other.
So I want to ask then to Justice Khan that at the end of the day, then what value does a popular mandate, forget about popular mandate, there are laws that have been passed unanimously by Parliament, unanimously across party lines, that have been held up in the Supreme Court. Then what value does unanimity in a democracy have, political consensus in a democracy have?
Zaka, I think distinction first is to be made on two or three things. One is selection process, another is appointment. Selection process, we have to have a selection body for any appointment, for example, as you have in the bureaucracy or as you have in the police, similarly in judiciary. Question is, for ensuring independence of judiciary, there has to be some selection mechanism which is independent of the government so that you don't have an executive interference tomorrow or on day-to-day basis. Now, why it was given to the collegium at that time was in the hope that the collegium comprising of 5 senior judges know better who are the suitable people from the bar, who have the merit, who can be good judges, and so on and so forth. Second, that they will act fairly, they will act in transparency, and they will have some criteria to choose. That didn't happen. The result is any system is good or bad as you work it out. Now, those expectations failed, and we had complaints, and we had genuine complaints. Now, those complaints were nepotism also, favoritism also, pick and choose also, all as is happening elsewhere. This is one. Second, there is a misconception that we have the people's representation and Supreme Court is nullifying a people's will.
Who gets to interpret the law? Should that be left to the interpreters of the law, or should that be left to people who've been elected by popular will?
Only interpreters of law. Zakat, do you know that in our parliament, what is the percentage of the MPs who participate in the legislation? Do you know how many of them know what law is made? How can you trust a system like that?
Okay.
But that's not the point. So, point is, Parliament has a domain to make law. It falls within its prerogative. Supreme Court has the jurisdiction to strike down it.
I want to ask specifically on the context, in the context of appointment of judges, Arima Sundaram, the fundamental difference.
In the context of appointment of judges, distinction is lost between a selection process and appointment.
Okay.
Appointment is done by the government. But
fair enough.
For example, if a public service commission, UPSC.
You know, there's a history to why the collegium system came into place, whether it was the second judge's verdict or the third judge's verdict. Ultimately, there were instances where government was superseding chief justices of high courts and even sometimes the chief justice of the Supreme Court. Ultimately, the whole idea of having a judiciary as a third pillar was to keep a check on the executive, was to keep a check on political power. Therefore, these judgments came into play, and that's why the collegium system came into existence. So, the chances of the executive misusing its power is far more than it is of judges, because at the end of the day, they have fixed tenures.
See, Zaka, I come from the thought process that when we're looking at any particular provision, it's also ideal that we look at what the constitution makers originally also envisaged. When we're looking at the appointments of judges, and when we're looking at say other appointments, say the senior designations, etc., why is it that when we are designating a senior, we are looking at a full court reference and we are asking the entire court for their designation? But when we are looking at judicial appointments, we are only looking at 3 judges. We are only deciding among 3 judges for the high courts. So this transparency, this has to come out. I mean, it has to come on the face of it, because that is what the constitution makers also envisaged. But to say that if one particular part of the constitutional democracy has more veto than the other, it will make a better system. I don't think that is what the constitution makers also envisaged. They wanted a middle ground.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. I agree with, in principle at least, with one of the things that Sanya said, that ultimately you need a better system. I think everyone can agree that the current system may not be exactly 100% right. And therefore, if there is a mechanism to have that better system, and Arima Sundaram is right, if the veto power was with the CJI and not with the executive in the appointment of judges, maybe the NGAC would have stood judicial scrutiny. We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hello everyone, you're watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakir. The debate over the collegium system to appoint judges continues to escalate, with the latest flashpoint coming from the Supreme Court's dismissal of a plea under the RTI seeking information on a collegium meeting held in 2018. The top court said that discussions can't be placed in the public domain only final decisions can be. The court said that final decisions entail resolutions drawn and signed by all collegium members, but tentative resolutions drawn upon discussion and consultation among members cannot be said to be final. This also comes after Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar's explosive statement in the Rajya Sabha, where he said the scrapping of the NJAC, an act of parliament by the Supreme Court, was unparalleled in the history of democracy. Following that remark, the Supreme Court had some strong words for the centre when it came to judicial appointments, after the centre recently sent back 19 names, including 10 names reiterated by the collegium. The Supreme Court made the observation that the collegium system is the law of the land, adding that while Parliament can enact laws, the power to scrutinize or being the final arbiter lies with the court. Meanwhile, Congress MP Manish Tiwari gave an adjournment notice in Parliament to discuss the confrontation with the judiciary brought to the fore by recent statements made by government functionaries, including the law minister. Beyond the political noise, there is a tug of war over high-profile judicial appointments, where the executive clearly wants a greater say.
Parliament, in a much-needed historic step, passed the 99th Constitutional Amendment Bill, paving way for the National Judicial Commission. There was unprecedented support. The Lok Sabha unanimously voted in its favor.
The Supreme Court has said that the Parliament can make laws, but it is the judiciary which has the responsibility to scrutinize them. This is almost like collision course that we have been talking about.
Well, that's the constitutional arrangement. Parliament has the right to make laws, but the final arbiter of those laws in terms of how they square up on the touchstone of constitutionality is a mandate given by the Constitution to the courts. And therefore this confrontation, which is unfortunately building up, does not augur well for the constitutional scheme. And therefore I had given a notice under Rule 184,